Who is David Miscavige?
He was a messenger for Hubbard, which was sort of this group of teenagers, sons and daughters of Scientologists that were in the priesthood, who Hubbard was grooming as to be leaders.
At the age of 11, David Miscavige joined the church with his parents. As a child, his ambition caught Hubbard's eye. So when Hubbard wanted to become a filmmaker, Miscavige was his assistant cameraman.
So Hubbard appointed what he called messengers who had to be treated as if they were Hubbard himself. They were young kids who had grown up with him, so they were considered that they were superior to anybody else. They were sort of in the process of becoming the new top level of management. One of them was this young man, David Miscavige.
He became a sort of general contractor for the church and was soon named Action Chief, the man who did whatever needed doing.
One of the projects we had to do was to defiberglass Hubbard's home while he was gone. We had to gut all the fiberglass insulation in the house and replace it. Miscavige would come in and he'd do a white glove inspection. It's a military term, but you take a white glove and you rub it up against the furniture. If I take a white glove and I find anything that's detectable on that glove anywhere, it's a flunk.
Do you think this is a joke?
We were told we had to go do it again. And it's pretty clear that he was probably the most intense, driven, dedicated of all the messengers. Forget the moralities. The person who gets it done, that's who gets the accolades, and the person who gets in the way is the person who gets the penalty. And he was the most sort of aggressive, most loyal to Hubbard of the lot, and so it was no surprise that he rose to the top.
So far in life, I haven't had a whole lot of trouble communicating. Now, see if you can communicate to me what it is that you're going to be able to do for me that makes me a better communicator.
Well, number one, I would never try to talk you into that Scientology is for you. You see, that's the funny thing about this, is if I'm now going to give a sales pitch to you on Scientology.
You see
so let's look at it this way.
You see that edge? He's got that down. He's pissed, but he's not overtly showing it.
What about the effects of clearly power and influence that he's had and money?
Yeah, without question, that has served as a corrupting force.
It has.
Without question.
Have you seen sort of evidence of that he's changed over time?
After the 1993 IRS exemption that Scientology won back, and this information comes from Mike Rinder, that's when David Miscavige, as soon as the checks on his power were removed, Miscavige's behavior changed markedly.
We've seen evidence for many years, starting with his bromance with Tom Cruise in the 1990s, that Miscavige loves living the VIP lifestyle. He has the best of everything. He gets to fly around on private jets and lives the best life possible.
As time went on, he began to get control and power. Hubbard died, then he had another power struggle with another, and he got complete control, then absolute power, absolutely corrupted. And I watched this dwindling spiral of the guy. He became increasingly motivated by wanting to be in the inner circle with this whole celebrity life of the rich and famous clique. Obsessed with his own image, paranoid beyond belief, creating group confessions to get to the bottom of what kind of intentions might be lurking within the ranks against him. I mean, like Stalin-esque type of stuff.
The guy's got somebody, I'm sure you know this, recording him 24/7. Even when we were sitting there drinking scotch, tape recorders down, everything's being recorded.
Even if he was just saying...
If we were playing backgammon, that damn thing was rolling. The guy, I mean, it scared you. You thought, what the hell? I'd play backgammon with him, and I'd make a point to lose. I mean, it was...
Why?
And I got good at it, by the way. Because if he felt at all that you were more popular or better in any way or anything, he'd flip. And he could flip like that.
He was mean. He was a mean guy.
Get up and get in my face and put your finger in my chest and let me know that my problem is that I buy my own bullshit.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Who are you to come in here and tell me that what I stand for and what I have learned is the right way?
Listen to me, you slimy little cocksucker. You fuck up one more time, I will rip your fucking face off. You got that?
Get with me, motherfucker!
Get personal. Dress the guy down.
I don't want you just to agree with me.
Call him a four-eyed son of a bitch,
You're
cocksucker.
a four-eyed son of a bitch, you cocksucker. I mean, you had no idea what you were doing from the beginning, and I knew that.
Louder.
You had no idea what you were doing from the beginning, and I knew that.
Shove him against the wall.
You son of a bitch, listen to me.
This is really good.
Okay, you're gonna fucking do what I tell you next time, and you're gonna actually listen to me.
Louis, this is really good.
From the start.
Okay, cut. Okay.
You're a cock-sucking loser! You're a piece of shit! I'm telling you what you're worth! I'm telling you what you've been doing with your life! Don't look away!
He's got it. He's got it. This is David Miscavige right here.
Where were you getting that from?
I tap into anger very easily, and righteousness.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's righteous anger. That was like being there. Yeah.
David Miscavige never forgets. David Miscavige never forgives.
If you fall out of favor with David Miscavige, you're done. Done.
I lived in fear of David Miscavige. He was not to be crossed. He had a serious reputation. You had to be on your best behavior. You could very easily get in trouble around him.
There was this fear element to it. And I didn't see that at the time. I look back on it, I see it very clearly. But at the time that I was in, it was this, we had this whole hero worship going of this guy. Because Miscavige is regarded in Scientology, and especially by the Sea Org, as this amazing, awesome, hardworking, nose to the grindstone guy. He pushes that image down. He wants people thinking that. And so there isn't any, disrespect or any idea at all that you would do anything other than exactly what he tells you to do if he comes around.
And if you know anything about David Miscavige, and it's not hard to find out, he's a sociopath and he beats people and he enjoys it.
Yeah.
That's what they need in order to get their heads out of their asses so that they do what they're supposed to do and get their jobs done.
He is destroying people. He thinks he's helping them because he's got this notion that this is what they need. It's just a wrong way of thinking.
Well, I've heard that you were quite tight with David Miscavige.
It depends how you look at it. Dude, tight with David Miscavige isn't really possible, I don't think. But we did get along, and he did...
He liked you?
I think what really happens is he may or may not like you, but he uses you until you're fucking used up, and then he chops your head off and everybody's gone. And it happens...
Pattern.
It is a pattern. It happens to everybody.
He will give and he will take. And he will give and he will take. But he will give. He doesn't just take. He doesn't just beat on people mercilessly, and that's all the experience you have with him. There's kindness between the abuses, right? And Miscavige will do this. There are some rewards. There are some bonuses, financial bonuses. There's, somebody gets a car or an SUV or something, or a really nice watch, or some token of appreciation that matters to them. You're never quite sure what it's going to be from day to day. Is today Miscavige's nice day, or is today Miscavige's naughty day, right? Like, how's he going to be? If you don't know, it makes it worse, but it also keeps you hanging on with loyalty longer.
Is Miscavige a true believer? Yes. He has to continue to believe, because if he looks at it rationally and he sees that it is as I say, it will destroy him. He's abused people on a personal level. it's how he got to the top, and it's how he stayed at the top.
Do you think he believes in all the Thetans and all of that?
He definitely believes in that. I think he believes in Scientology, but in a different way than all other Scientologists, because he's aware of a lot more information, damaging information about L. Ron Hubbard and the true story of Scientology than most people. So his version of belief is different. I'll give you one example here. So Scientology's bridge to total freedom goes up to what they call OT8, operating Thetan level 8. Okay. Scientologists have all been told that L. Ron Hubbard, before he passed, finished, completed, putting together OT 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. It's just sitting in the vault, waiting to be released. This is part of the Scientology belief system, because remember, I said going up Scientology's bridge to total freedom is how you're supposed to get back to your native godlike state. Well, all the Scientologists in the world who've already done OT8 know that they haven't gotten there, but they still believe in Scientology because they're told there's more. But wait, there's more. Miscavige knows there is no more. OT 9 and 10, those don't exist.
Do we know they don't exist?
Yes. And when Miscavige determined that he was not, and there weren't in fact any levels, that was bad. That was a bad day to be David Miscavige, because he now knew he had something on his hands he could not get himself out of. He's like, oh.
So there's no gap for faith to seep in, that there is a level 9 and 10 and 11 and 12.
Oh, the faith is there. Scientologists believe that these things do exist.
Yeah.
L. Ron Hubbard didn't leave anything behind.
Does David Miscavige believe they exist?
Oh, no, he knows they don't exist.
No,
meaning, when I say exist, I don't mean do advanced levels of spiritual awareness exist. When I said it means, did L. Ron Hubbard write down what anyone is supposed to do? That's called OT9. That doesn't exist.
So you're saying David Miscavige believes that they can be written down, so they exist sort of in the Platonic sense, and L. Ron Hubbard is the only one that can write it down?
Yes.
So his faith is really deep.
So Miscavige knows the fundamental promise of being able to achieve full operating Thetan is a lie. He knows L. Ron Hubbard didn't accomplish that. So therefore, no one else is going to accomplish it as well. If L. Ron Hubbard had accomplished it, Miscavige knows, well, he didn't write it up. He didn't leave instructions for how anyone else would accomplish it. So no matter what, Miscavige knows that the fundamental promise that what Scientology is saying they will be able to deliver to mankind is a lie. Now, it's going to sound like I'm contradicting myself, because it sounds like I'm saying, well, he knows it's bullshit. I think he believes that L. Ron Hubbard just failed to finish his work, and he's kind of hoping L. Ron Hubbard's going to come back to finish the job. Because L. Ron Hubbard did tell the people at the international management base, at least a core of them, that he was coming back. Now, we know that David Miscavige believed this because right around the 21-year mark, he was supposed to come back like 21 years after he died. Right around the 21-year mark, David Miscavige was getting busy putting some things in place that had to get done in case L. Ron Hubbard came back. So we know he at least believed to that level. At the international base, Miscavige actually had like a copper contraption built into the ground, like grounded into the ground, to come out where you could hold it. And here's something he sort of came up with to it could ground your BTs, could get your BTs that if you were feeling overstimulated or something. I'm probably slightly bastardizing this story, but he came up with this as a great idea, something to help someone destimulate if their BTs were getting a little too overactive use. Now, so that's a stupid story. That's sort of like, well, it shows you he believes in the concept of BTs if he's creating little rods to get rid of them, to ground them into the earth.
Well, he could be conjuring up the stories because he understands the power of myth and narrative and so on to inspire.
Sure.
But also if we look at history, both with this is the interesting thing, because I've been reading a lot about Hitler and Stalin, and it seems like both of them in different ways believed in the stories they were telling. Even when the stories, this is the fascinating, especially with Hitler and propaganda, where they were literally conjured up at first. But then you start to believe your own propaganda. With Stalin, I think what he always believed is the bigger ideal of pure communism, and anything justifies the journey to communism because it will ultimately be good for humanity to achieve the state of pure communism. And then he's a godlike figure that can bring humanity there. But like With Hitler, it's interesting because like there's constant propaganda that he knows is not true. A little bit. There's got to be doubt, but then he like did all doubt is removed very quickly.
Yeah.
So I guess humans are just, this is how they operate.
Yeah. The conversation about David Miscavige gets really interesting because I could give you if I wanted to make the argument that he didn't believe, I could give you a dozen examples to make that argument.
Yeah.
I just happen to think that he believes in a different way. Yeah. Whereas your average Scientologist believes that L. Ron Hubbard was practically infallible, that he thought of everything in advance, he took care of everything before he left. And Miscavige still believes in like the main structure of this thing, but he's like, oh shit, it's falling to me to figure out how to actually make this thing happen. I think Miscavige sees himself as someone who has, to a certain degree, had to go back and fix L. Ron Hubbard's mistakes.
Do you think he sees himself as doing good for the world?
I do.
What about for the people of Scientology?
I think in his own way he does. I think that's fair to say. I think the evidence shows that.
It is the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. What is good for David Miscavige is good for planet Earth, literally.
I don't think he wakes up thinking he's screwing Scientologists. I think he sees everyone else as screwing him. I think he sees that it is his job to expand Scientology throughout the world and accomplish the aims of Scientology. And he sees that it's not happening. And he thinks if everyone else would just stop, if everyone else would get out of his way and stop creating problems for him, it would happen.
We'd sit and drink a bottle of scotch, and I'd hear everything he had to say about the church and about the people involved from his perspective. And honestly, it was horrifying. It was scary. Well, he worked very hard to convince me that 2.5% were okay and the rest were very evil and bad, and somehow they'd all been dumped on that base so they could be around him. He was extremely paranoid.
Anybody that wanted to damage or hurt or stop Scientology in any way was what's called a suppressive person, an antisocial personality who's bent on destroying mankind.
You know, what he said to me was, he leaned over and he goes, do you know what I do all day, Leah? I have to root out suppressive people in my own organization. I do that day in and day out.
Two sides. Are one of them fake, or are both sides real in different moments? Can one person house a light side and a dark side of such extremes? Are they faking it when they're nice, and inside they're always thinking dark thoughts? Or are they genuine in the moment when they are offering praise or approval or being warm and friendly? Who can say? We aren't in their heads. What we do know that is new is that I have been told by someone who would know that Miscavige and others at the highest levels of Scientology are actually waiting for Hubbard to return for real. And if that's true, that is a bigger revelation than it may appear at first. Because it's been 37 years since Hubbard died. If he was coming back, he definitely should have come back around by now. He is reputedly a very hard worker. He's not some guy, apparently, who was just sitting around all day. That's not Miscavige. This guy is working his ass off. And these little things actually indicate much bigger truths. But isn't it wild to think about this man as somebody who was honestly, sincerely trying to make this work? And we have these two sides. We have this absolutely psychotic madman who will beat and torture and abuse and harm people to no end to accomplish his goals, but who can also be this beneficent, spend millions. And if Hubbard comes back, he wants Hubbard to know he was on source and he was with command intention and he was doing exactly what he thought L. Ron Hubbard wanted him to do. And all the changes and all the nonsense he's pulled hasn't been a real estate scam, hasn't been a money grab. It's been his honest effort to try to grow Scientology. And we see the incompetence. We see the psychosis. We see a person who despite his intelligence and his well-read brain and his worldly ways, we see somebody who just can't get people to work creatively. He can only get them to work at the hand of a whip. And that, in that microcosm of the world that is Scientology, that crap doesn't last long. People don't put up with that. When the ratio of benefit or reward to punishment becomes too high, whether we're talking about a family unit, whether we're talking about a job, or whether we're talking about a religious movement, or a whole society for that matter, right? Revolution is what happens. I can only speak to this from my own experience and memory of what it's like to be a religious fanatic. But from that perspective, I can tell you that the mission is everything. And it may well be that Miscavige considers himself to be in a position where he has to pull that mission off no matter what it takes, no matter how many people he has to bust or how much of the Scientology structure he has to tear apart to do it. If you look at the current state of Scientology right now, as we've gone over, the management structure has been annihilated. It is Miscavige and a small group of people as an inner circle, maybe about 10, and it is upper management that is running Scientology internationally, and they are, statistically speaking, running it into the ground. But if his viewpoint is live or die, and I think Miscavige is showing signs of losing faith, which could be a dangerous place for someone like him to go. Robert Lifton wrote another book about that whole thing, and it's called Destroying the World to Save It. And in that book, he wrote about a possible future for Miscavige if he were to ever totally lose faith in what he's doing. And this is the quote from Lifton. They may come to feel that only the world's death can enable them to overcome their own inner deadness. Given that Miscavige has relegated everyone who has ever meant anything to him to punishment camps or exile, while those closest to him and whom he trusted most, Marty Rathman, Mike Rinder, Tom DeVock, Amy Scobie, so many others, all of them abandoned him due to his dark, abusive nature. There could well come a time when he realizes that it's not them, it's him. And that he's been the bad guy. He's been the one who relied on a con man to give him his own life purpose and guidance and direction, and it turns out it was all a lie. Miscavige is at the head of a global human trafficking network with billions of dollars at his disposal. What will he do? What could he do? The list of possibilities is long and unpleasant at best, horrifying at worst. But this is something we have to think hard about because this is another factor of the Scientology mess we are fighting. What happens if, or is there even a reason to say if, Miscavige loses the faith that holds his fanaticism together? While we can conjecture, none of us can say for sure, but it might well be something none of us want to actually find the answer to. Could David Miscavige pull a Jim Jones? Yeah. If he's in that mindset, he absolutely could. It's a hop, skip, and a jump away from that mindset to do that. If the feds were coming in, if the police were rolling in, if he thought he was out of options, maybe as a fanatic, we have a whole different set of future possibilities than if he's a con man. It's so much easier, as I wrote, to think about Miscavige as just a con man, to think about L. Ron Hubbard as just a con man. It's easier on us to think about them that way because the alternative is horrifying.